to CNBC. My name is Jared Tuttle, and this marks the first development of our sustainability series. Today we have with us CEO of Best Buy, Matthew Blackman.
Thanks for having me, Jared.
So what is sustainability? Sustainability is not a trade-off between profits and environmentally friendly practices. It is a way to operate your business for the long run, meaning you're enabling future growth while nurturing current business practices. And why is sustainability important? Sustainability is important because business environments are dynamic. This means strategies that work today may not work tomorrow. And therefore, if a company isn't conscious of how this future may look and isn't positioned technologically to have a competitive advantage in it, it will not succeed. So what is the United Nations Development Goal 14, Life Below Water? This goal tries to focus on lowering carbon dioxide emissions, reducing pollutants in the water, protecting wildlife, and ultimately seeks to raise consumer awareness about what types of products they're buying and the effects it has on the ocean. So now we will hear from Matthew Blackman about Best Buy and his practices.
As we said, Goal 14, Life Below Water. As Best Buy, we are working on 4 things: carbon emission, recycling, our supply chain, and helping the community at large. So, on our carbon emissions, we have been focused since 2009 on reducing carbon emissions. We have a goal of 60% carbon emissions lost from our prior productions to 2009. We are currently at 51%, and by 2050, hope to be totally free of carbon emissions from our operations. This will allow us to keep cleaner oceans, and pollution runoff will not enter the oceans. Moving on to recycling. We collect 178 million pounds of recyclable batteries. This is great because with a lithium battery, runoff and lithium can seep into the ocean and cause harm to wildlife, coral reefs, and just the ocean health. Moving on to our supply chain. With our supply chain, we have 96% of our smelters are mineral free. And finally, with helping the community, we prepare 1 million teens from underprivileged places to help them get technology jobs and advance in the world. And some great announcements that we have this year: we will be attending the UN climate negotiations meetings, as well as we were placed on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for the 8th year in a row. Thank you, Jared.
So now that we've heard from Matthew, we're going to go ahead and hear from Jake Gandolfo, who is a frequent Best Buy customer, and he also has a PhD from Michigan in sustainability and ocean studies. He's on multiple ocean conservation groups, and although I know we heard about what Matthew's saying Best Buy's doing, he does not seem to agree. We'll also hear from Scott Pruitt, who's currently the chief of the EPA, has a PhD in poli-sci environmental studies from Michigan, and is an avid outdoorsman who loves and understands the need of the ocean.
Hi, Jared. Thanks for having me. After hearing from CEO Matt Blackman, we can see that Best Buy does a great job at giving consumers the opportunity to be environmentally conscious. However, the reason consumers, environmentalists, and government officials have joined together to form a coalition against Best Buy is because they are passively managing their supply chain. We decided to graph Best Buy on the sustainable value portfolio to see how well they were performing. At first glance, we thought that Best Buy was an extremely socially responsible company. They scored very well in cost and risk reduction and innovation due to their efforts with consumers. However, after digging deeper, we gave them a low score on growth path because they are cutting corners by failing to actively manage their suppliers. They also received a low score in reputation and legitimacy because they are not being clear who their suppliers actually are. Best Buy suppliers use toxic chemicals that can hurt the environment that make its way into the ocean. To address these issues, we enlisted environmentalists to determine if Best Buy was adhering to environmental standards. Head of the EPA, Scott Pruitt, found it very concerning that Best Buy suppliers could be polluting the ocean with lithium and lead. Within the first 24 hours, exposure to lithium could be fatal for marine life. So together, we have lobbied government officials to help us impose harder restrictions on Best Buy. We are lobbying for a $25,000 fine for each parts per million of lithium above the government mandated level of 0.1 parts per million in dissolved seawater. In addition, we would like a government consultant to periodically check Best Buy suppliers after 6 months to ensure that they have adhered to these conditions. When breaking down the supply chain, we found that Best Buy fails to manage the mining and manufacturing aspects, but we do find that they do a sufficient job at managing transportation and consumers. Best Buy does not actually report which companies they receive their raw materials from. However, they do disclose that their miners are based in China. A vast majority of big miners in China have been found to be culprits of violating international pollution laws. Chinese mining companies are notorious for dumping their waste into the ocean. These mining companies also release an enormous amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The CO2 released into the atmosphere is warming the climate on Earth. As the climate on Earth becomes warmer, the ice caps in the ocean are melting, which has a detrimental effect on ocean species. Melting ice caps are causing whales to migrate south earlier, and seals are losing their ability to hunt. Increasing water temperature also leads to the bleaching of coral reefs. This has a detrimental effect to the ecosystems around coral reefs because these ecosystems have the highest level of biodiversity on the planet. This is in direct contradiction of the United Nations Goal 14 to protect marine life. If miners do not fix these issues, we are going to push for a boycott of all products that use Chinese mining rigs. Right now, the only check Best Buy has on its suppliers is an annual survey. We want Best Buy to actively manage its suppliers and ensure that they are actually adhering to the standards that we are imposing on them. Best Buy's practices with its manufacturing companies are very similar to the mining companies discussed previously. Best Buy asked their facilities and employers to fill out surveys, so we had similar concerns. Best Buy's manufacturing companies are also based in China. Chinese manufacturing companies are known for releasing high levels of pollutants into the atmosphere, causing a great deal of smog and acid rain. This acid rain contaminates ocean waters and poisons fish. This is in direct contradiction of SDG's Goal 14 to stop ocean acidification. We demand that they put CO2 scrubbers in their facilities, and we also want these companies to adhere to international standards and not the easier Chinese restrictions. We are giving a 6-month deadline for these changes to be completed. Thanks for having me on the show, Jared. I'm now going to pass it on to Scott, the head of the EPA, so he can talk more about what Best Buy can be doing better.
Thanks, Jake. As head of the EPA, I'm concerned with Best Buy's carbon emission and recycling programs. The carbon emissions from their suppliers are the most problematic concern brought to our attention. 50% of their suppliers' factories do not follow the Electric Industry Code of Conduct after third-party audits were done by Company Point 380. Maybe Best Buy as their own company is reducing their carbon emissions, but the supplier factories are definitely not. With 24 of Best Buy's suppliers' factories not following the standard emission guidelines, it only adds to the emissions of cargo ships as well as vehicles used for transportation of their goods. As shown in the visual, the carbon dioxide as well as other harmful chemicals are emitted from these factories, ships, and motor vehicles, then are pumped into our atmosphere. From there, it's trapped within our atmosphere, which only adds to destruction of our ocean marine life through the rapid heating of our planet. Then carbon dioxide also mixes with the ocean, increasing its acidity. Then the increase of acidity in the water ruins the habitat for marine life, especially in the coastal areas where the marine life there is very sensitive and very crucial to our planet. This poisoning of our ocean waters is aiding to the coastal eutrophication and destroying the habitat for both large and small marine life. Best Buy needs to pursue these factors and enforce the EICC's carbon emission requirements, as well as not just trying to lower the emissions from their distribution vehicles, but possibly they could make them electrical powered, which will eliminate their carbon footprint as well as decreasing their cost in the long run. Due to Best Buy being such a large and powerful corporation, they have the ability to enforce the EICC's carbon emission requirements on their supplier factories, and then go beyond those requirements rather than just applying the bare minimum. These requirements need to be put in place as soon as possible for minimal damage not only to the ocean marine life, but to the human footprint on the planet. Now, as a large electronic retailer, Best Buy offers recycling to their customers for their old products. In the past years, they have collected 161 million pounds of consumer electronics, but not all of that material is able to be recycled. Only certain parts of these electronics are taken out to be reused or recycled, while the rest becomes waste that has a chance to come in contact with our oceans, which is a major part of the 20% increase in marine acidity over the past decade. Along with this, many of the recycled products are from customers bringing in broken products in the mindset to get them replaced rather than with the intent to actually recycle them, showing a low knowledge of Best Buy's recycling program among consumers. Also, for those consumers who bring products in with the intent to recycle some of their larger products, this will cost them around $25 to be recycled at Best Buy. If Best Buy wants their customers to actually recycle their old electronics rather than throw them out and having them end in our oceans, they should re-examine their initiative to improve recycling of their products at these plants, as well as promoting this program of recycling to their consumers a lot better. Thank you, Jake and Matt, for talking to me on these topics tonight, and thank you, Jared, for having me tonight, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon.
You're welcome, Scott, and thank you, Jake, for talking to us. So after hearing from both Matthew and Scott and Jake, we've gone ahead and we've decided that Best Buy's greenwashing. Their practices of sustainability are more for show than they are practical and applied strategies and initiatives. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm calling upon consumers, other environmentalist groups, and politicians to hear what Jake and Scott has said and go ahead and exhibit their economic, political, and informational powers to make sure Best Buy adheres by the call to action that was just presented. Thank you very much.